Alright, so now let's step back to audio for a little while here. Let me go ahead and delete these effects that we had added over here. And let's go in, we're going to zero into this little spot on the timeline right here. Go ahead and select this keyframe, hold down the shift button, select this keyframe all the way to the right, right click, and delete keyframes. It's an easy way to lasso everything right there. And if we head up over to the inspector over here, you'll see under the audio enhancements, you have an audio analysis button right over here. And if you click on it, you'll see a little checkbox appears. Checkbox appears next to all of these individual isolated tracks, and you see our main wave file over here has become quite large. That's because Final Cut Pro has analyzed it and changed it according to things like loudness, hum removal, and noise reduction. Now if we right click and go expand audio components, you'll see that all of the separate isolated tracks, their waveforms have changed. If we Command Z to undo the audio analysis, you'll see, and if we Shift Command Z to redo, there we have it. Now going back up into our inspector, we'll see that there's nowhere over here to see what's actually been done to this. This is because we're not actually selected one of these individual tracks, but rather on the container of all of the tracks. When you're on the container of the tracks themselves, you don't get access to all the different things that you do when you're on an individual isolated track within that. So going to our first isolated track over here, popping up over here, you can see underneath audio enhancements, you now have a show button. Go ahead and drag this stuff down. Now the loudness is the only thing that actually engaged, and it pumped up to 83%. If your audio clip needed noise removal, that would have engaged, and this would have been moved to a certain percentage. If it needed hum removal, that would have engaged as well. But like I said, this is pretty good sounding audio to begin with. So the audio enhancement button helps to either fix the loudness, the noise removal, or the hum of an audio clip if it requires it. If it doesn't require it at all, none of these would have engaged, except in this case, it needed to get a little louder. Now you also have the option, if you go up into preferences here, to set the import settings to analyze video for color balance, but also to analyze and fix audio problems. If you have this selected, when you import anything into Final Cut Pro, it will automatically make these analyzations. Now typically I leave that unchecked along with the color balance, because when you're importing footage, you don't want to be slowing it down by analyzing files in the background. I tend to only do this later on with the audio that actually makes it into my timeline. That way you're cutting down on processing time. But the last thing I'll mention is that these types of audio enhancements that are done by an algorithm are only really useful for temp mixes. Any sound editor mixer worth their salt is going to undo all this work when they get their project file on their end, probably on Pro Tools or something like that, and they'll start from scratch.